Do you think you know the nature of your spirit? Do you know the nature of God? Do you know how you relate to God as a spirit? Do you even believe in God? Let's talk about the heady subject of spirits, ghosts, gods, and human nature. Sidestep the Quran and Allah for 1 minute because I do think this is more important. So, I'm your host, Daily Corvid. Let's just get stuck right in. It's an old man. Good afternoon, ladies, gents, and Pikachus. Welcome back to the show. This is going to be a long video. Please check yourself at the door if you don't have the intelligence to keep up with what I'm saying. But I can guarantee you by the time we get to the end of this video, you will recognise not only is this of great importance to the religious man, atheists and agnostics included in their ways, even though they don't have a god, this is directly going to inform the way that you behave in the future if you understand what I'm about to tell you. So, even though it's tough for me to admit to these things, I have to tell you something I've done in my past. Otherwise, you will have no clarity on it. You won't understand. Before I came to Christianity, when I was a lot younger than I am now, I used to be a drug addict, heavy drugs user. Now, anything goes when you're a drug user. You start off saying, I'm just a smoker, I just drink, I just smoke weed. And the longer you're in the game and the more hours of experience you gain, the more you level up in the drugs business, the more different and wild kind of drugs you will end up doing. Because to begin with, I used to say, I only ever smoke weed. Then it was, I only smoke weed and do ketamine. Then it was, I only do weed, smoke ketamine and take pills. Then it was, I only snort coke, I don't smoke it. And finally, it was, I do everything apart from heroin. And I even tried that a few times. It got me nowhere, by the way. Disclaimer, drugs really do mess you up and are a complete waste of time. But my point is this. At the times when I was the most off my head that you could ever imagine, and I can tell you it was doing a heavy drinking session, then smoking weed on top of that, then going back to my friend's flat and mixing a line of ketamine with a line of cocaine, a big fat line, and snorting it, and then you would literally be a zombie. God knows how I managed to survive doing that. But one thing that I remember clearly, even though this should wipe my memory, and I can tell you nobody else has experienced this who did those things. They all lost their memories. They can't remember what they did. I remember walking home. I used to live in Camberley Town. And I remember as I was walking through Camberley Town, my vision was blurred and it was like a fisheye lens. I could barely see anything and I'm stumbling around. I can barely see 2 feet in front of me. And everything that's 2 feet in front of me looks like it's right in my face. So I have no idea where I'm going or what I'm looking at. And I am in no frame of mind to really understand what I'm doing. It's almost like an out-of-body experience, right? I'm trying to find my way home. But for some reason, I found my way home perfectly along the same route that I normally take. Now, you could say this is muscle memory. But let me give you some extra context. While I was stumbling home on all fours, banging into cars, crawling along the gutter in the darkness, finding my way to my front door, and finally getting the key in the lock, scrambling up the stairs to my bed. 99% of my brain at that stage was anaesthetized, completely switched off from the drugs, the weed, and the alcohol, and the late hour. So I should have been unconscious. And many people do fall unconscious in that state, it's true, but I did not. Now, I couldn't play FIFA. I'd been trying to play FIFA before I left the chap's flat. I couldn't play it at all. I was completely useless. But 1% of me knew exactly what was going on. Even though that 1% of me could not control my body in any kind of way. I'd thrown up several times on the way back and I could barely stand up straight. But in my thoughts, and it surprised me to notice it, 1% of my thoughts were completely 100% sober, could see perfectly through my eyes even though I could not, recognised that I was a unique individual with my name and knew who I was, and was calm. And that 1% guided me when the 99% of me that I was in control of could do nothing but stumble about, throw up and fall over. The 1% of me that was sober, in control and peaceful and knew what was going on I repealed Control 2 and it led me home perfectly. Without injury, without hitting a car, I crossed 2 main roads, even though I couldn't see and there was cars. What is that 1%? Is it me? Was that my human spirit? Or was it something else? And at this point I was an atheist, speaking against God at conferences, telling people that you didn't need God to be moral, then going out and getting off my face on drugs without anyone knowing. What is that 1% that was unaffected by all those drugs and that managed to guide me back to my front door without being hit by a car or getting into a fight with a stranger, which would have been the end of me because I couldn't see or stand on my feet? How is it that that 1% survived all that and was completely sober and knew where my house was, knew me, made me feel calm to even recognise that it was there? It's an omen! I won't lie to you, it is kind of funny to think about those times, despite the fact that it's shocking behaviour that I would definitely look down on now. But it just makes me think, if there is 1% of each of us, which is our personal link with God, that's what I think that was. I could hear a voice in my head that sounded a bit like me, but was speaking to me, so it was a person without a body. And the person without the body was saying to me, "You've been a fool. Look at the state of you. You don't even know where you are. You're an embarrassment. You're going to need my help." And in my head I was surprised. And I thought, wow, these drugs are really something. Like, they make you hear this voice in your head, and it's like a good voice that's sober and clever. And I thought nothing more of it, but I went, okay, voice in my head, you guide me. Now, I still had to go through the motions of putting one foot in front of the other. I was still in control of my body, but I couldn't see at all. It no longer worried me. I was no longer thinking, I don't recognise my surroundings, where am I? I no longer felt like I was outside my body. It didn't worry me at all that I couldn't see and that I didn't know where I was. I just followed the voice. And I got home. It's amazing. It's amazing that that happened. And even at the time when I thought, wow, these drugs are amazing that they can do this, immediately my heart said, no, it's not drugs that are doing this. It didn't tell me what it was. I probably wouldn't have remembered or understood it, but I knew that it wasn't the drugs that were giving me that clarity and leading me right. So what was it then? I think now that is God. That's the Holy Spirit that was speaking to me and guiding me, making sure I got home okay. But the weird thing is, I was an atheist at this point. This was years before I found any evidence of Jesus or that I'd done a prayer. I was just a skanky atheist at the time. I was a sinner. In fact, at the time, in my day life, where people actually knew me, because I did this in secret, nobody knew I was doing drugs. In my life, I was going to conferences and I was an atheist. I was speaking about how atheism was a moral way, how you didn't need God or religion to be moral, and you could do all these great things for your life, and you could be this great guy. And I was a vegan, and I was a liberal, all the cliche things. But they weren't real. I was a hypocrite. And the proof of it was, I was slinking off at night, unbeknown to my friends and family, and I was spending hundreds of pounds on a tray of different drugs to take, weed and alcohol included, and I was hanging about with undesirables, and I was going home off my face. It's an omen! I could have died on the way back. I could have been killed. I did not know who I was, where I was, I couldn't see, and the reason I couldn't see is because when you take large amounts of ketamine and also cocaine, the muscles that control your eyes seize. So your eyes go completely out of focus and you can't control what you're looking at. You can't control your eyes effectively enough to physically see. And that's what was happening to me. So everything was like blurred because I was focusing this far in front of my face, like 2 centimeters in front of my face. And my brain wasn't processing those optical signals correctly, which is why everything looked like a fisheye lens. When I went past a light, it was really, really bright, but it was like curved in an unnatural way. And I knew when I was looking at it, this isn't right. But that was that 1% telling me that, wasn't me. So the conclusion is this. As far as I'm concerned, based on that evidence and what I know since then from praying, reading the Bible, being experienced in life, that 1% was not drugs and it was not me. It was another person who was speaking to me to guide me well in my moment of need without me having asked for it. Not because I deserved it, I genuinely did not. It was a loving, caring, guiding intelligence that could communicate to me from somewhere, because it definitely wasn't physical, and it knew exactly when to turn up in my life without me having asked for it or deserved it. That 1%, that external connection that I had with something, was God. And he led me right. And years later, when I prayed for the Lord and Jesus came to me, I still didn't make the connection between that moment and this moment and now. But I want you to think clearly about this. If it's possible that you could pray to that spirit that led me, and they could immediately know that you were doing that and hear every single word and care about you, genuinely unique individual you, care about you enough to listen and respond, would you not relinquish control to that spirit? Would you not want that spirit to guide you? So just try it. I can tell you now, the guiding spirit that saved me that night was not Allah or his angels. Allah and his angels is described in the Quran as an enslavement force that takes away your free will and possesses your body to cause you to do things in line with Allah's will. Therefore, you bear no responsibility for those actions. If you kill or rape or whatever you do, it's Allah that's doing it. Therefore, it must be good. So Allah absolves you of responsibility through ignorance and through slavery. It's not your fault because he caused you to do it. And because he caused you to do it, even though it's bad, it becomes good. That's not what I experienced. It's an omen. The following day when I woke up, had a bad hangover, I rubbed the dust out of my eyes and exited my bedroom, and I saw a trail of destruction through my house. I'd knocked just about every single thing that wasn't nailed down off its perch and broken it. I'd trailed mud up the stairs to my bedroom, thrown up several times, and I'd left the door open. So it was a big wet patch on the door where the rain had come in. God knows why we didn't get robbed that day, because the door was lying open. And my flatmates were extremely upset with me. And I was responsible for this. I was very sorry. I genuinely was really sorry, and I did everything I could to make it up to them. And then I got chucked out, which was fine. It's fair enough. But my point is this. The guiding spirit, the loving, peaceful, intelligent spirit, which was not affected by drugs or alcohol, which I relinquished control to, that guided me right, that saved me, was not enslavement. And it was my causes that it served. The cause of getting me back home so that I wasn't in any way damaged or I didn't die. It's the opposite of Allah. So we know that spirit that I experienced is not Allah, 100%. It might be God, we don't know. I think it's God. But it 100% is not Allah, cannot be Allah. It's described in here as being the opposite of this. So my point is this. This is the conclusion. Let's say you could have access to that. And in your darkest moments, when you are afraid or confused and you don't know which way to turn, or maybe you have a choice of two evils and you don't know how to progress, if you could access that 1% spirit and be led in that way by a caring intelligence, a loving, wise spirit which is non-physical, unaffected by your humanly, fleshly troubles, would you not choose that? Or perhaps you would choose Allah's slavery and end up, being a tool of his goals. So you wouldn't be led back to your house safely in your bed. You'd be led somewhere else, doing something else. And you wouldn't get control back afterwards. But you would not be responsible for anything you did. That's one thing that Allah has that God can't offer you, is when Allah's angels possess your body and cause you to rape and murder, Because he has possessed you, the responsibility is not on you. You are absolved of responsibility. Now, your brothers and sisters on earth aren't going to see it that way. They're still going to hate your guts, and they're still going to say you're evil for having done those things. But in the eyes of Allah, you were just doing what you were told, just following orders. So you're not going to incur his wrath. But do you think this is the guy who controls life? Or do you think this guy who controlled me, the 1% guy, do you think he is the guy that controls life? Because you're going to have to make a choice pretty soon which one of these spirits you will bow the knee to. That's why I said at the beginning, atheists, agnostics, everyone of every faith will be faced with this choice very, very soon. Not just because of the holy war in Israel, but that's certainly part of it. When the larger spiritual war reaches you in your life, and you are set that task, which one of these evils is the lesser one that you will choose, maybe you will know which one is right to choose, maybe not. But if, like me, you don't, but you need the right answer, you will have to make a choice which one of these animating spirits you are going to put your faith in. And the summary of this video is, I am going to advise you as a friend, having the experience that I have of life, choose this one. Choose the one that's loving, peaceful, not enslaving, and righteous, that cares about you as an individual, that will guide you but not control you, that will serve you and not make you a slave. It's the only hope you've got. So, that's the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed that and you learnt something. God bless you all. And I'll see you lovely people in the next one. Bye now. Watch now as 1,001 Muslims dogpile me as a crazy drug-using hippie. So hopefully that doesn't happen and you enjoyed this. God bless you all. Have a lovely evening and I'll see you back here tomorrow for more Without Lies Islam Dies. Bye. Bye now.